Hi, I'm Cameron, and I don't just read comics, I love them. Welcome back to another episode of Kim Reads Comics. Today we're going to be talking about the Superman by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason Omnibus. So let's just get into it. I think this is the best in continuity run on the character of Superman. I'd say when I'm trying to sell this book on the rack, this is to Superman what Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man is to Spider-Man. It is just the epitome of the character. It is very wholesome. It's very Americana. I feel like here's just a couple things that happen that I think are just like fill your heart with joy. Superman and Clark takes his family, Lois, and his new son, John, on a road trip. They visit Washington, D.C. This Superman eats apple pie, and there's a really great scene where he tries to make Batman eat apple pie. And especially I think that's so important with some of the core themes in this book about what's going on in D.C. currently. A lot of people have a lot of things to say about D.C.'s politics and whether or not they're going anti-America. This run came out in like 2016 and it carried on through 2018. And so for people to think that DC's anti-America, I'm just like, look no further than this run right here. People just really need to be reading this book. And I actually think it's underrated. I think a lot of people rate Superman stories based on Elseworlds or a mini-series. A lot of stories that happen kind of like outside of the continuity or like, of what's going on in current DC. But this book is extra special because it takes place in continuity. It's all in canon right now. And we just kind of get to see what Superman and Lois's life would be like with their son. They don't live in Metropolis. They live in Hamilton County in a farm, very Smallville-esque. And Clark gets to be the Jonathan Kent that him and Lois take on the role of his parents to his new child, who's a half human, half Kryptonian. Is wonderful. It's just so wholesome and so Superman. It shows you why Superman can work. I think also, I don't want to go too far into spoilers and like some of the arcs of the book, but some of the villains you see and some of the stories that you really get include Mr. Mxyzptlk, the Eradicator, Manchester Black comes in, Bizarro, and there's even a decent Lex Luthor arc. So that's just a couple of the faces you're going to see within this like 46 issue omnibus. There's a couple more than that, but it's either short stories or annuals. So Superman 1 through 45 is pretty much taken in this book. I think the first 6 issues of the series are some of the best in continuity Superman. Like if you want to know if like when an arc starts, sometimes it takes a second to get its feet under it. This is not one of those things. I think that this book, the first 6 issues, I think it's just called Son of Superman, that arc, starts off so freaking strong. And it is so good, just like setting the narrative. And this book actually, if you're wondering, it picks up after Lee Weeks and Dan Jurgens' Lois and Clark miniseries, kind of post New 52 and kind of what was happening. So it references that as an introduction level, like if you want to understand Superman or if you want to get to know this character, look no further than this story right here, because Superman is obviously a character that kind of initiated superheroics into comic book medium. And I just mean, if you want to kind of pick a point where Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, DC, Marvel started, it's going to be Action Comics #1. And so for someone with that large of a continuity, he's a complicated character with a big history. But when it comes to introductions, I think that this would be one of the best books to pick up. To not be super bogged down, it kind of holds your hand in a continuity way. I think this arc does too. One of the other things that this book does is some of the team-ups. So this same creative team actually wrote this series coming off of Batman and Robin, which they did for the New 52, which I'd argue is, I think, my favorite run of the New 52. So when they came together for a Superman book, you knew I wasn't going to miss it. But yeah, so they come together for this series, and it's really good. So obviously they're going to team up with Batman. So there's actually a great Batman, Robin Superman, Superboy team up a couple of issues, and then there's recurring things that happen, and it's freaking wonderful and wholesome. And I think Peter J. Tomasi is one of the strongest, most underrated writers at DC, because I think at this point, for me at least, any character he picks up, he absolutely nails. He has a great Black Adam run. He has a great, obviously, Superman run. He does awesome stuff with Batman. Batman and Robin. Like, I didn't like Damian, and he made me like Damian. I already liked Superman, and he made me like Superman more. And so that entire thing, though, is elevated with Patrick Gleason's art, which is not to be overlooked. And even those issues with Batman and Robin and Superboy are so strong that it literally launched into their own solo series called the Super Sons, which I have read and I adore, and I think it's wonderful. So if you like, there's almost like a sequel to this within the Super Sons, and so you should go check that out. The only con I'd give it is that it is affected by surrounding DC continuity. And so if that's something that weighs on you, then I think you should be aware of that as you buy it, or as you're making the purchase or just diving in. It references things that are happening in Action Comics, which is being currently, at the same time, written by Dan Jurgens. And so, there's multiple Superman. This book deals with the ramifications of everything that happened in the New 52. There's kind of a whole arc based on multiple Supermen running around. There's another Clark Kent in this universe. And even in the New 52, there's another Clark Kent. So it's dealing with all of those repercussions. Like, what's going on? And there's also crossover events in this book with, there's a whole arc with the Teen Titans and Superboy and Swamp Thing, and outside effects, there's Justice League appearances. And I think it also definitely references James Tynion's simultaneously for the Bat Family Detective Comics run. And so if you're not, those themes don't loom heavy over the narrative that's happening here, but things that are happening in the surrounding DC universe are affecting this book. And so, as I'm trying to say, there is a portion of continuity that plays a part in this. It's not a major one, but when you are the flagship Superman book, like proper Superman, not Action Comics, not, Superboy, Supergirl, when you are this title, those kinds of things are bound to happen. So I just want to make that clear. And while it's not quite a con, it's like one thing to look out for. And I think that you should be wary of that as you read this book. And hopefully their goal, and for the other titles it's referencing, maybe you want to go pick those up and read those too, because I can tell you right now, I think I'm going to dive into James Tynion's Detective Comics next, and you don't need to twist my arm to get me to read Dan Jurgens. So that's what I'm saying. Now I want to spend some time talking about the art. Within this entire run, there's a couple major artists. The three that stick out the most, and I think have the most, is obviously Patrick Gleason, who is, I think him and Peter J. Tomasi in general, I just find to be both criminally underrated. And then as a team, it's just they're giving us some of the best character moments in the entire DC universe. And so to experience and see those is so special. And to have them in one run are so good. But because the schedule, I think at the time that this book was coming out, is coming out twice a month. So, it's 2 issues a month. Patrick Gleason couldn't be on all of those arcs. So they bring in some other collaborators. So the other one they brought in mainly, I'd say, was Doug Mahnke. And I love Doug Mahnke. I think his style's kind of divisive. He kind of, people, they're really like his older stuff, they like his new stuff. I think his art style in this text has shown to be very adaptable. He had, he has his own style, and then he'll come in on this book, and I think he tries to make the characters more rounder, more broader, more Pat Gleason style characters, which was kind of the foundation of the book in its origin, and so I can respect that. I've learned to really like it. I don't know how I felt about it at first, but that doesn't mean I was right or wrong. That just means it is what it is. So I liked that one a lot. I love Doug Mahnke, and so those are two great artists. And then there is a third, and I thought he was the underdog coming into this book. It is, I think it's Jorge Jimenez or George Jimenez. He is criminally underrated because he comes in, and I think this book springboards him into an entire new career. Because after this, he was on Justice League, he was doing Super Sons, and now currently he is on the Batman title. And I think he's an artist that has deserved all the praise and all the opportunities that he has. And I think if I was to rank the artists in this book, it'd be Pat Gleason as my absolute fave, then George Jimenez, and then Doug Mahnke. And that's not to say any of those artists I favor more than the other. That just means I thought the work that they were doing and the variant covers even they were doing in this text were so cool. This book I found mesmerizing, and so I feel I need to rate these out of a scale of 10. And so I give this book an overall 10 out of 10. There were some negatives, but the positives outweigh those by a lot. And so I want to be here to tell you that I really think you should be reading this book. I think that it hits so hard. There's so much more. I'm rambling and I'm all over the place because I finished it today. It pulled on my heartstrings. It reminds you of family, and it just is what a Superman book should be. And I think that's to be applauded. I think that it is. If you're a DC fan, I would argue 110% that this is an essential DC book. Don't let me keep talking about it, though. You should be reading it right now. Remember, I'm Cameron. I don't just read comics. I love them. Make sure to clap those like and subscribe buttons, as well as check out my podcast, Cameron Reads Comics, on iTunes, Spotify, and leaving a 5-star rating and review. See you next time.